Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're thinking of buying a property in Ireland, whether you're a first-time buyer or you're just trying to understand the process, this video is going to walk you through the 9 essential steps you need to know. By the end of this video, you will have a clear roadmap from getting mortgage ready all the way to collecting your keys. So let's get started. The point number 1, get your finances in order. Before you even think about applying for a mortgage in Ireland, you need to make sure that all your finances are looking very clean and consistent. How do I mean? For example, you have to make sure that all your loans, your credit card repayments, your direct debits are all up to date. No missed payments. This is very, very important because the bankers or the banks, they don't want to, see the situation that you are missing your payment. That is it's a strong indication that you will be missing your mortgage repayment as well. So you need to ensure that your bank account is very tidy. You should try as much as possible to put a description in your transaction. For example, if you're sending any amount above 500 euros to anyone, try to put description on that transaction. That would, save you a lot of time when you're making your mortgage application. And as you know, as part of the requirement for mortgage in Ireland, you need to have at least 10%, deposit contribution towards your mortgage. And the lenders would like to see how the history of how you have been consistently saving up this amount in your savings account. They want to see how slow, steady you have been making this contribution, not just a sudden lump sum like some 5,000 euros or 10,000 just came into your account from nowhere. And if such happened, for example, maybe you've gotten some money from your parents or from your family member, so you should be able to explain this. Or maybe you sold your car or anything, so you should be ready to explain this because this will be asked by the lender. And finally, in this step, so you have to ensure that you have a permanent job or a fixed term contract, depending on the sectors you are working in. And then some lenders, they are happy to accept your application with a fixed term contract, while some lenders could be a little bit, might be pushing back. It all depends on the sector. One of the factors they look at is which sector do you work in. For example, if you're working in the IT sector or in the pharmaceutical sector, they have this type of feelings that you can easily get your contract renewed. So this first step is the foundation of the entire process of your mortgage journey. If you have gotten it wrong from these steps, there's going to be very difficult to move on to the next step. So the first step of get your finances in order, it's very, very important. Moving on to step number 2 of mortgage process in Ireland. The step number 2 is get mortgage approval in principle. An approval in principle, or AIP, is your green light to start house hunting. This tells you about how much you are eligible to borrow from the bank. Usually this is 4 times of your annual gross income. And in case of joint applicants, you serve and your spouse and your partner, it's going to be like the combined annual gross salary multiplied by 4. Say you are earning 50,000 euros a year and your partner is earning 50,000 euros a year. Combined is 100,000 multiplied by 4 is 400,000 euros. That is the maximum amount you are able to get in Ireland. Of course, if you also have some bonus that can be guaranteed by your employer, this is also counts towards your income as well. So that could give you more, boost in your eligibility. You can apply for mortgage through brokers in Ireland, and of course you can as well approach any bank directly and tell them about your situation. They should be able to help you and tell you how much you can borrow. but I would strongly advise that you go through the broker, because they can usually, work with multiple banks at the same time and recommend the appropriate for your specific situation. Once you are approved for the approval in principle, these are usually valid for between 6 months and 1 year. And this allows you to start viewing properties and then to start making offer confidently, especially if you're buying an old house. You know the process, you have to make offer. And you should, something I also want to advise you is that you should, remember to check if you would qualify for a government schemes, like, for example, Help to Buy or First Home Scheme. These schemes, they are specifically designed for first-time buyers, and the building has to be a new build anyway. So you may need to check this. For example, under the Help to Buy scheme, you may be eligible for a tax refund of up to 30,000 euros based on what you've paid in tax within the last 4 years. So you can visit revenue.ie for a full details about this and to know if you'll be able to qualify for any of them. So point number 3, find your home and make offer. Now the fun begins from this part, and sometimes can also be very daunting and stressful sometimes, because the housing situation in Ireland, you should be ready to travel from one city to another, sometimes from one country to another, depends on your housing need, to search for houses. At this point, you need to start booking appointments with auctioneers and start viewing properties. So there's something I like to advise you. When you are viewing properties, you need to take into consideration a number of factors. For example, the location of the property, the size of the property, the size of the back garden, the car parking. Do you able to park directly in the front of the house, or do you need to park off the street? You need to see what type of amenities or infrastructure do you have around. Is it a remote area or a major city or a townland? So you need to check how close these properties are to shops, to schools, to transport, to train stations, and even to motorways, because some towns you need to drive for maybe 1 hour before you get to the main motorway, and and some cities or towns you only need to come off the motorway within 5-minute drive. You're already in your town or in your estate. So these are the factors you need to consider. So once another thing I like to advise you is make sure you don't choose a property or a house out of your emotion. Don't get emotionally attached to this house. Some of the houses, when you enter them, they look very nice settings. Don't get moved by this. Don't get attached emotionally. Make sure you consider all the factors, all the, what you're aspiring or, dreaming to have in your new house, the type of location or the environment, how close do you want to be with your communities. So these factors are very important than the house itself. To some people, maybe they like to live very close to a train station because they're not driving. For some people, they want to be close to schools or other activities such as swimming. They want to have Lidl, Aldi, or Tesco in that town or city where they're buying the houses. So all these factors, you need to consider them. So once your offer is accepted, if you find a property you like and it meets all these criteria, you have to place the offer. And usually this is made via email to the auctioneer. So once your offer is accepted, congratulations. Things are just getting real at this point. And that takes us to point number 4. Point number 4, pay the booking deposit. Once your offer is accepted, you will be asked to pay a booking deposit. This is typically 5,000 euros, but it can also be varied by auctioneers. So you need to check with your auctioneer. And this booking deposit is usually refundable until the contract is signed by both parties. Once paid, you are officially sales agreed. Congratulations. The auctioneer will then issue a memo called sales agreed or sales notice to your solicitor. So make sure you already have one solicitor lineup for this transaction. If you don't have one, the point number 5 will be necessary for you. But if you already have a solicitor lineup at this point, you need to jump to point number 6. So point number 5, appoint a solicitor for the conveyancing process. A solicitor is essential for handling the legal side of purchase in Ireland. For example, you can't buy directly from the owner or from the seller, so you need a solicitor to manage the legal aspect. This ensures that you're not buying a wrong property, and you also have the right documents and all the necessary documents for the properties you're buying. Ideally, you should start looking for a solicitor early, around the same time you start viewing the property. Once your sales agreed, the auctioneer will need to send some necessary document to the solicitors, and therefore they will need a solicitor's name and address to issue such document once the booking deposit is made. Point number 6, secure a formal loan offer. Now it is time to turn your approval in principle to a full mortgage offer. At this point, you will be asked to submit the proof of sales agreed. This is the same memo that was issued to your solicitor by the auctioneer or the sales agent. So this sales agreed would include the full address of the property, including the air code and the purchase price. And then it's also going to show your full official name and the name of your partner if you're buying with your spouse or with your partner. So any conditions attached to your approval in principle, for example, you may be receiving approval in principle with the conditions such as you need to pass your probation period at work, you need to clear some existing loans, and so on and so forth. All these conditions at this point needs to be fulfilled. So once fulfilled and the bank is satisfied, they will arrange for valuation of the property. At this point, the bank is going to send the valuer to the property to inspect the property to ensure that the value is aligned with the market value and with something they will be able to fund. Once everything is checked out, the bank would formally issue a loan pack, a copy to you and to your solicitor. If you're buying an older property, it is strongly recommended that you hire a surveyor for a structural inspection. This is very, very important when you're buying an older property. So sometimes some people mixed valuation with structural inspection. These are not the same thing, so you need to be very careful about this. The valuation is typically, checking the value, the condition, just the general condition, and what's the market value of the property. While the structural inspection, on the other hand, is looking at the condition of the property. Is there any damage? It could be structural damage. Is there anything happening, for example, on the roof, on the attic? They have to go all the way. They have different type of parachute to test the property, the wall, the structure, the beam, everything. Like if they discover any defect on this property, they are going to, you see everything on the report, because they're going to come back to you on a very big report explaining the condition or any concern they might have about the property. With this, you would typically go back to the seller to highlight your concern. Sometimes they may be willing to fix all these issues and you proceed with the buying process. And sometimes they might be willing maybe to reduce the price to align with the cost of the fixing of the issue. So you need to ensure this process is done if you're buying an older property. But for a new property, you don't necessarily have to do this, because in Ireland, mostly, you would have a coverage for 10 years period post purchase. If anything wrong with the property structurally, the builder would be responsible, to fix this for you within a 10 years period. Point number 7, sign the contract. At this point, things are just start to feel real. The solicitor will invite you and your partner or your spouse to the office, and they would walk you through, the loan offer. If there is any legal terms, if there is any conditions attached to the loan, there is any clauses in the contract. At this point, the solicitor will be explaining everything, to you and your partner. And you would then proceed to sign the contract if you're happy with the conditions. And you would also be asked to pay the 10% deposit. This 10% deposit would typically less the 5,000 euros you've already paid for the booking deposit. For example, if 10% of the purchase price is 50,000, remember, you've already paid 5,000 euros for the booking deposit. So now you would just only pay for the 5,000 euros. Right. And then at this point, once the contract is signed, you can't go back anymore on this purchase. If you go back, you may lose the entire 10% deposit. So you need to be sure you really want this property before you proceed to sign. And at this point, also, the solicitor now have the clear estimate of feasibility of the timeline when the drawdown would happen. So at that point, they should be able to tell you, okay, we can close this deal by the 15th of this month or 15th of next month, or, according to the situation. Right. Once you sign the contract, congratulations once again, because it's now becoming very real. Point number 8, snagging your home. This is required for new build. If you're buying a new build, you will be invited at this point to complete the snag list. You can hire an engineer or a surveyor. This usually costs between 250 and 300 euros, or maybe 350 euros. Or if you are confident and very knowledgeable about properties or about houses, you can do this yourself. I have had to do a couple of properties, myself, and there was any issue, right? So basically, the builder brings in to inspect, everything, not necessarily the structural aspect, but, could be, for example, the toilet is flushing, the water is running out from the taps, the doors are opening, closing well, the kitchen cabinet, everything is aligned, your stoves, your, windows. You have to check basically everything that it's functioning well in the house. If you have any observation, they have to make the list. Usually these are checklists. Okay, the light is working. You check that. You check everything. Mark them. If something is not right, you mark them wrong, and they send back to the builder, and they fix everything for you. So, and it's a very exciting time. The reason why I personally like to be part of the snag list, it's because I finally have the opportunity to get to walk through this new home and start to visualize that everything, where things would go when I have the key. Because in most cases, when you are buying off plan, you only visited the showroom or the show house, but this is probably the first time you have the opportunity to come into your house, specific house. So therefore, it's good to, to be part of this process, so you can start, thinking about what will go. So in parallel with this, make sure that the solicitors, they are progressing all the final stage of the mortgage paperwork. You may need to maybe just follow up with them once a week, just to know that things are going well. Point number 9, complete the purchase and collect your keys. This is the moment you have been waiting for. At this point, your bank will release the funds to your solicitor. And once the money arrives in your solicitor's account, your solicitor would then transfer the money to the seller's solicitor's account. This can happen within a day or two. It depends on the time of the day the fund was released by the bank. For example, if it was released around 4 o'clock on Friday's evening, nothing can happen until Monday, basically. And sometimes even if it's released on Monday morning, sometimes if the solicitor is using a different bank, so that could take another day and then sent to the seller's solicitor's account. But however, once this fund arrived at the seller's solicitor's account, then this means the deal will be closed, and it can be closed that same day. And typically you will receive a call from your solicitor or from the auctioneer to come and collect your key. So just like that, you are a homeowner in Ireland. Congratulations to you. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and please share this video with anyone who is thinking about buying a home in Ireland, or anyone, your friends or your family member, you think could benefit from this information. If you would like me to make a video on the mortgage tips, government schemes, or what type of document is required to apply for a mortgage in Ireland, please leave me a comment in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and all the best on your home buying journey in Ireland. Thank you, and see you in my next video. Bye.